Hello, and welcome to Iowa Ideas In-Depth Week. This week's focus is on college and career learning. My name is Grace King, and I'm the K-12 education reporter for the Gazette. Today's session is about what is college and career learning and why is it becoming increasingly popular in K-12 education. I want to thank our presenting sponsor, ITC Midwest, and I want to welcome our panelists, Tanya Hunt, STEM Best Program Coordinator at the Iowa Department of Education, Whitney Fischer, Dean of Students at the Waterloo Career Center in Waterloo, Dan Phillips, Director of Academies at Metro Nashville Public Schools in Nashville, Tennessee, and Adam Zimmermann, Executive Director of Innovation for the Cedar Rapids Community School District. Thank you all for being here. I want to remind our audience that we are taking questions, so please feel free to pop those in the chat. And I guess we should get this conversation started. All right. So let's talk first about what college and career learning is. Dan and Whitney, you have seen some of these programs firsthand. Whitney right here in Iowa and Dan in Nashville. So Dan, would you mind starting and tell us a little bit about what academies are, how they function?
Sure. The Academies in Nashville, we're going into our 17th year with these academies. We have them in 12 of our high schools. All of our neighborhood or our zoned high schools are wall-to-wall career academies, meaning that every student in the building is in one of the academies. They all start with the freshman academy, and then sophomore through senior year, they go into their upper academy based on their interest, off of their aptitudes and interest assessments that they do throughout their freshman seminar course. And then students work through there. They have opportunities to earn industry certifications, dual enrollment, really to help them get a deep dive into what they're interested in to find out that whether it's something that they want to pursue after high school or not.
Dan, could you tell me what sort of programs are a part of these academies? What opportunities do kids have to explore careers?
Sure. So in our 12 high schools, we have a total of 35 academies, and each of those academies on the upper academies have between 2 and 5 different pathways in each of the academies. So we offer everything from welding to health sciences, architecture and construction, and about everything in between, all based off what the labor demands are in the Metro Nashville area.
Whitney, can you explain what that program looks like in Waterloo schools?
So the Waterloo schools, we do it a little bit differently than how it's done in Nashville. We are a Waterloo public school, the Waterloo Career Center is, and it's a separate location from our traditional comprehensive high schools. So in Waterloo, we have 3 comprehensive high schools, East High, West High, and then our alternative high school, Expo. And our location is separate. So our students, typically we have sophomores, juniors, and seniors that attend the Career Center. And it's a choice that they make to come take classes with us. So they're not automatically placed into a Career Center course. They spend part of their day with us. So if they're a sophomore, they may spend 1 class period, which is 70 minutes with us, and then they return back to their home high school. If they're a senior, we see a lot of our seniors do spend most of their day with us if they've completed their required graduation classes at the comprehensive high schools. We serve not only Waterloo schools, but we serve all of the surrounding districts. So I believe we're up to 13 different schools and districts that can attend the Waterloo Career Center. So pretty much within like a 30-mile radius, they can attend our programs. We offer similar programs to what Dan was saying, construction, a lot of health pathways, culinary, hospitality. We have new ones coming this year, cosmetology, auto. I can't even remember. In total,
journalism was one of them, which I'm excited about.
So yeah, that's kind of like a micro course that we will offer. Welding will be one of our micro certifications that we offer, but in total, we'll have 20 programs this fall, starting at the Career Center.
Fantastic. Adam, do you want to talk a little bit about how the Cedar Rapids School District is looking to create similar programs?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. Have the benefit of learning from both of these wonderful people and the programs that they've set up. We're going to do a little bit of a mix. Similar to what Dan said, we'll have freshman academies in each of our three comprehensives. In addition to City View and Metro, they'll also have those academies. And then at Jefferson and Washington, we'll have upper academies. And Kennedy's will have pathways, but they won't be structured in the academy model. We're really trying to operationalize the mission that we've had for the last, I think, 7 years now of providing all students with plans, passions, and pathways. And so this approach and the way we structure our schools will match that purpose statement that we've gone after for some time now.
Yeah, I think that's a great segue into our next question is why do school districts make these decisions to create these programs?
I can lead why we have approached this, and really we looked at our data, and it boils down to, if you look at the metrics, we have opportunities in our graduation rates and our attendance rates, and that all boils down in our minds to student engagement. So how are we providing kids the opportunities to explore their passions and then get experiences in those passion areas? I think that one of the things we've learned is that we want to mirror and make sure that we're supporting our local workforce, but we also want to provide kids opportunities that they can practice skills that we think are really important, in those professional skills that we've talked about for a long time. Collaboration, communication. They need opportunities to get out to the workforce and get real feedback in real time in meaningful settings that they care about. And so that's the reason. The data sets are clear, and we think this is a way to operationalize and make real on those promises.
Yeah, Dan and Whitney, how have you seen these programs improve opportunities for your students?
Well, very similar to Adam. Back in 2005, 2006, Metro Nashville had a graduation rate of just under 58%. So we had a crisis on our hands. It was impacting whether businesses would come to Nashville and look, because the first thing they do is look at what's the status of your public education. So that was really the key factor in what we did. We build off as Adam said, it's all about the rigor, the relationships, and the relevance. And so that was the big key to doing this, was to give kids these experiences that would engage them, not only in their CTE classes, that's never been a problem, but how are we engaging them within their core classes? So with the academy model, it's all about bringing in those nuggets, those pieces of relevance for the kids in those core classes, so they can answer the age-old question of, how am I ever going to use this? So we're bringing that into all of those core classes. And going up through, prior to COVID, we had got up to the mid 80% in terms of graduation rate. So we had kids engaged, they were finishing, there were lots of opportunities. And we've dropped a little bit over COVID, as probably everybody else has across the nation, but we're starting to see that rebound again in terms of how can we really ratchet up those experiences to re-engage kids coming out of COVID, to get them back into those experiences.
Yeah, same with Waterloo. Our search for some answers began in 2012. When there was a task force created that included, our superintendent, school board members, teachers, administrators, to really understand why our students were dropping out, not finishing high school, because we were at an all-time low as well. And so with that search came, the Waterloo Career Center, and we've seen a huge increase in our graduation rate. We're back up to state average, which is great for Waterloo. We're an incredibly diverse district. 57% non-white and 54% free and reduced students in Waterloo. So the answer was, what we found with the creation of the Waterloo Career Center. Not only do we have great programs at the Career Center, but we are also working on making sure that our high school CTE classes are aligned to the Career Center classes, but even going to our middle school and making sure that our middle school CTE courses our pathways into what we offer at the Career Center so that they know in 6th grade, like, oh, I really love IT. I really love these computer classes. What can I take at East High or West High? And then what can I take at the Career Center that can get me, into that pathway? Like Adam said, really making sure that they're engaged, highly engaged, has been really beneficial for our students in all of the Cedar Valley.
Tanya, can you tell us how you work with school districts on exploring and creating these college and career learning programs?
Yeah, absolutely. It's exciting to be here because I get to work with all of these, except for Dan. It looks like a trip to Tennessee will be in order. So what we do with the STEM Council, the STEM Best program is an opportunity for schools to apply for a grant that affords them the opportunity to do this exploration. As our panelists have shared, they've had the opportunity to connect with each other. And I think that's really important because each one of them is doing this work in the planning and executing differently. And from my perspective, that's kind of what has to be done. It's not a cookie cutter approach where this is going to work for your community. So it's important when you hear our panelists talking about how they are offering these opportunities for not only their students, but their community, because the things that I see happening are not just benefiting our students, they're benefiting our staff, they're benefiting our communities, and I definitely think it's going to benefit our economic growth, no matter what community you're in. So we try to afford those opportunities and make sure that funding isn't a barrier for when they want to do this exploration and when they want to bring those partnerships into our communities and into our schools so that all of our students have these opportunities.
What are some maybe foundational building blocks that are needed to begin implementing some of these programs? Dan and Whitney, you both talked about looking at industry needs. Tanya, you mentioned, community partnerships. So what does that look like, putting all those pieces together?
Well, the community partnerships are vital. Your business relationships, that's really how you get the exposure for the students, not only with business partners coming into the school, but getting your kids out of the classroom to where they can see the reality of what they're working towards, hear from people that are doing it, what their journey was to that space. The other thing is it's tons of professional development. It's a lot of work with the teachers, and for us, a lot of those core areas in developing the academy is our multi-day trainings with the teachers, because it really is different than probably what they went through in high school, as well as what they were prepared in their educator prep program. And then it's the sustainability. For us, we're in that sustainability mode with turnover and all aspects of that. So we've really worked hard this year to get that common foundation with all of our staff to where we can continue to build off of that and get all the teachers performing the way we need to ensure the success for our kids.
Adam, you are actively doing some of that building block work right now. Can you talk to us about it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what Dan said, they're 17 years into the process. I think for us, it's defining a common language first, painting a vision, and then bringing the stakeholders on board. So teachers, administrators, parents, community partners have all been essential, have been moving enough, obviously, to making this work. I think Dan spoke to each of those. And so we're starting with Freshman Academy. This next year will be an infrastructure building year. So doing much of that training that Dan has talked about with our teachers. And then the upper academies will launch the following year. I think one of the other things that hasn't been mentioned yet, but I think that we're finding is that in Iowa, we're the second largest district. And we have lots and lots of opportunities within our system. But aligning those opportunities and making them transparent and surfacing them for all kids hasn't been a strength of ours. And so taking all of the things we have and starting to build a system around that and providing those opportunities so a kid can say, hey, I'm really interested in being a doctor, and I want to make sure that I'm on that track and they can make that choice within our system, and pursue those from the time that they enter our secondary schools.
I can add on to that. So we're kind of in the middle between Dan and Adam. We've been fully opened. Our building's been fully open since 2018. So we're coming up on our 6th year, and I would say we're finally getting to that point where students in our community and our schools are aware of the Career Center and all of the different opportunities and options available to them. And it's taken some time, but it's been, lots of community meetings, lots of going out to churches and business partners, and so many meetings. And it's been, an all hands on deck by our staff at our building as well as at our schools. We rely heavily on our counselors at the comprehensive high schools as well. And it's taken them some time to get fully knowledgeable of the Career Center, because it's different. It looks different than the traditional high school. And it's kind of a mindset shift. We use Mark Perna for a lot of our training, and it's a shifting of paradigm, right? You're changing the way that education looks. And so that's taken a while, but we're finally there. We feel like we're finally there, and we're gaining a lot of momentum, which is evident in our numbers have been increasing every year steadily. We're adding more students in more programs. So it takes a while, but it's clearly worth it when you look at graduation rates, attendance rates, engagement rates, pass rates, so on.
I think there's a mindset shift, at least that we're engaging in now, is CTE is so often thought of as one track, right? That these are the kids that are going to go into career. We're building a system for all kids, and we want all kids to have an opportunity to be successful and follow their passions. So changing that mindset of saying, hey, when we talk about college and career, we want a pathway, and we want opportunities for students to engage in their passion areas, regardless of whether they want to go to a traditional 4-year, want to enter the workforce, want to enter the military. But we can structure our system and the resources that we have in it to better engage our students on a daily basis. And that mind shift from going to just a traditional CTE idea to every student should have opportunity in their passion area has been some of the work that we've started to start with, and we'll continue to need to develop.
Yeah, how does that change kind of that typical graduate mindset preparedness for life after high school, from maybe a lot of kids not quite knowing what they want to do next to having steps in place?
I think from our lens, there's a level of transparency and the opportunity to engage in those conversations early. So a student may say, hey, I'm really interested in being a doctor, and take a course or have a set of experiences in their early secondary years and middle school, maybe even elementary, and say, hey, that's not for me. And that's okay, because now you have the opportunity to eliminate that and try something different, while along the way getting practice in the skills that we think are really important. And we're hearing from industry of saying, hey, what are your professional skills look like? How well do you communicate? Can you actually work with people? Those skills will build regardless of the field you're in when we do this correctly. But it gives us the opportunity to have those conversations early and often with our students in a systematic way, which will ultimately allow them to be confident in the choices they're making after high school.
Yeah, I think it's important just to add on to that, is that, of course, you have a varied group of students, just like you said, Grace. Some are going to come knowing exactly what they want to do. Some are going to be, still wondering at, 40 plus what I want to be when I grow up. And when you are offering opportunities to these students, as long as we are offering them with those skill sets in mind, like the research shows, no matter what their post-secondary pathway is, they are more likely to be successful. And what I think is important, it also sets them ahead on their pathway. Like they're going to discover what that thing is sooner if we've set them up to be successful.
In Waterloo, we're very intentional about making sure that we have touch points. We use Zello platform where our students are, consistently doing activities starting in kindergarten to identify not what they're going to be when they're 25 years old, right? But what are their passion? Where do their interests lie? What are they good at? What are their strengths? And so, along with Zello, we also use Life Labs, which is an experiential learning program. And we are just very intentional with every year. We make sure our students are exposed to something career related, whether it's a job shadow. Every sophomore in our district does a job shadow every fall. And we just make sure that every year there's something that they're doing that is intentionally targeted towards a passion, a pathway, a career, so that when it gets to May 25th of graduation year, you know, they're not saying, I don't have zero idea. At least they can rule the things out that it took me, you know, $10,000 in 2 years of college to do. So.
Yeah, and for us, that's it exactly. It's about getting kids exposure. We don't want to define our kids by what zip code they grew up. So we want to make sure that we're exposing them to high skill, high wage, high demand jobs where they can get into a career with upward mobility and provide a livable wage. Nashville is very expensive. So we want to make sure that the kids have those opportunities. But again, it's about getting the kids that deep dive into what they're interested in. And then that leads them to one of two outcomes. They either reinforce that, yes, this is what they want to pursue, and they now have that map laid out after high school, or they find out, as Adam said, this isn't for me. They did a job shadow where they got in and realized that what they were interested in is not for them, and they can make that switch, which again saves a lot of time and money when it comes to post-secondary education. So again, it's about getting the students that exposure to help them make that solid plan after high school.
Absolutely. And that talking about different, you know, zip codes, different socioeconomic status, these are opportunities for all learners in college and career readiness. Can you talk about how there are opportunities for other diverse learners, students with disabilities, English language learners, and at-risk youth? Dan, would you mind starting?
Sure. When we say all students, we mean all students. So in our comprehensive high schools, our zoned high school, every student is in one of those academies. Now their experience might look a little different. We have a very high growing EL population. So a lot of those students may not level into the courses with their grade level. But we want to make sure they all get the same opportunities in every pathway. Their job shadows might look a little different because of our transportation and lack of student transportation. We've done a lot of our work-based learning over the last couple of years. We've built out opportunities within our schools to which the students are able to take advantage of those opportunities, still get that real world learning, but they're doing it within the school environment versus going out to local businesses, which we still have, but we really have done that to meet the needs of our students, both in terms of whether they have an IEP or an EL structured program, or just lack of transportation. We want to make sure that every student has the opportunity to experience those same experiences going through high school.
I would just add, and what we've tried to build, we've built it over the last 12 months, has been a continuum of experiences that all of our students will have from the time that they're in elementary, middle, and then high school. And so our kids have incredible capacity and aptitude. And it's our job to unlock that capacity and unleash that potential. And so from our lens, we're structuring our system in a way that we can say every elementary school student will be exposed to college and career activities. And these are the universe of activities that they're going to be exposed to, and they're going to do it early. They're going to explore in middle school, and then they're really going to engage in high schools. And when we can do that effectively, that capacity and the potential of our kids, regardless of where they're from, they'll thrive in that, and they'll take advantage of those, and they'll be more engaged because of it, and be on track to pursuing what their goals are.
Yeah, could you talk a little bit more about student choice? You're talking about them getting to explore these careers before high school. What does that look like? Will these academies and pathways be required for all students? Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, so I think we talked a little bit about the structure of Wash and Jeff and then the pathway program at Kennedy. What all students will have is exposure to those experiences. And through middle school, we're going to provide those experiences and exposures regardless of pathways. When they get past their freshman year, they're going to make a choice in which pathway they're going to pursue. So if that's at Wash or Jeff, that'll be in the academy setting. At Kennedy, that'll be in a pathway setting. The choice we want them to make is, what am I passionate about? And what do I want to explore and engage in a deeper way? And so we'll have a set of procedures and protocols to make sure that kids can make those choices in an informed way. And all of those experiences in elementary and middle and in their ninth grade year will lead up to that choice. And they're not going to get locked into any pathway, but we want them to be informed to have the opportunity to say, these are the things that I want to go deeper in and really engage in my high school experience.
I just want to remind our audience to pop their questions in the chat if they have them. I'm loving this conversation. And what I love about it is that we are just touching the surface on some of the other topics that we will be talking about at noon every day throughout the rest of this week, such as business partnerships, how you find teachers and train them to teach these programs, and how students and families choose the best pathway for them. So there's definitely deeper conversations there to be had. But let's go back a little bit and talk about what are obstacles in creating these college and career learning programs. It can't be an easy feat, or everyone would have done it already, right? Tanya, would you like to start us off?
Yeah,
Sure.
absolutely. Oh,
Oh,
go ahead, Dan. Yes.
no, go ahead. I thought you said Daniel.
Well, from what I hear when I'm having these conversations, besides the funding and having the time, because schools are under so many pressures and having competing must-dos or must-haves, in order to make this work, it has to be a priority, and you have to engage so many stakeholders. That takes time and resources. And then I think having, well, right now, the staff period, but then on top of it, it has to be the right staff. It has to be the right people. And sometimes that means finding the right person, and sometimes it means finding the person and then making sure they have the right training so they can, learn what you're trying to accomplish, really buy into what you're accomplishing. And making sure that all of your stakeholders too understand, because everybody comes to this from a different lens, whether it's a parent and it's their child, choosing a pathway, or whether it's your business and industry partner that wants to hire like 20% of your student body now. They all are coming from it from a different lens. So making sure that they are staying engaged and you're having to communicate with them, it takes a lot of time, and it has to be your passion to do that work too. Like, I am passionate about this work. I am passionate about supporting these schools. So it's easy for me. And so I think as long as you can engage those conversations in the right people, so they see too that, oh, the fruits of this labor are worth it. That's kind of the, if you work past that obstacle, you'll be successful.
I would agree. I also think it takes a lot of commitment. The people have to be engaged, but they have to be committed for the long run, because you're not going to see immediate results. You're not going to see immediate buy-in from your staff, the students even, because it looks different, and it requires, like I said, it's a different mindset, a mind shift, but your community as well. So you really just have to stay committed and push through, because it's not immediate. It's going to take years for you to see the fruits of your labor. And once you get to that point, it clicks for everybody involved. And then you will have community members and businesses knocking at your door and, begging for your students, and you're going to have wait lists. And it's a great thing once you get there. It's just getting there. That's hard work.
Yeah, Dan, what did that look like in Nashville?
Well, it was definitely a marathon. It wasn't a sprint, but as Whitney said, there are going to be some victories. You're going to see engagement and attendance and behavior are going to be the first thing that you notice as you develop these processes and tie those courses together to increase that relevance, as well as building those relationships. And then once you've had classes go through, for the majority of school districts that I'm aware of that done this, just as Adam described, you start with the freshman academy, and then you start to implement the upper academies year by year as you're building out that system. So you'll see, again, a lot better engagement, attendance. But once you've gone through and graduated that first freshman class to go through, and the second freshman class that goes through, then it becomes part of what you do. And then the sustainability of that is done by your teachers, your academy principals, your coaches, your teachers, your business partners that are really driving that. And that's where you can see the work of tying in all those nuggets of relevance in their core subjects to where they can then pull back those as they're taking those standardized tests, or the ACT if they're thinking about the construction framing, where they're using Pythagorean theorem, and they can see that eventually on a test. That's where the impact on the academic side will come through.
We're getting some audience questions here. One of our audience members asks, which comes first, creating a program or the student interest? They say, we've tried to create programs that meet local needs, but find it hard to get students to engage. Waiting for student interest is challenging as well, as it's hard to stand up something meaningful and impactful quickly. How have your schools navigated those challenges?
So I'd go back to one obstacle, and then I'll take that question as well.
Sure.
One obstacle that we're facing is maybe Cedar Rapids specific, but I doubt it's just Cedar Rapids specific, is facilities. We know that space needs to look different in order to give kids a different experience. And so we've committed a significant amount of money with current funding sources that will support this programming moving forward. In 2 of our schools, we're going to need more to make this the experience that we want and need for all kids. So space and facilities has presented itself as a challenge that is also an opportunity with the bond coming up, that this will be front and center of, as well as PEPL. In terms of elevating student voice in the process, we have spent 12 months trying to do that. And I don't know if we've gotten it right, but we surveyed all of our middle school students who will be the first to engage in this work, current high school students. We focus group them, and we've tried to match that to local needs and say, okay, where's the sweet spot that we say these are interest areas, these are the workforce needs, and how do we marry those to create programs that work for all stakeholders? And so I think elevating those voices, continually having them at the table, has been our approach to making sure that they're interested and can buy in and get excited about those. And we also know that they're going to change, and the workforce needs are also going to change. And so building spaces, building programming that's flexible will be the challenge moving forward. But having student voice at the table will be essential for us going forward.
Yeah, Dan, Whitney, have you navigated programs that maybe didn't see as much student interest as you hoped, or tried to prop up new programs because of student interest?
We go through that every year. So we have a process annually called our program modification, where schools can take feedback from students, from advisory boards, from industry partners, to close a pathway that might not be performing or have that interest, or there's a new need within the Nashville Metro that would provide the opportunity for a new one. The biggest thing is, we have a saying here, kids can't be what they can't see. So it's about providing the exposure for those kids, to get them those opportunities to see things that they may never come across. We're just under 70% in terms of our poverty rate. So we have a lot of students, just as you do, that may not see a lot of success in their daily lives. So we want to make sure that we provide those opportunities. The other component is we can't offer everything. We can only offer, in Tennessee, we have state approved pathways that we have to start with. So then we tie that to our local labor needs, student interest. But where we can truly individualize that is with our work-based learning opportunities. So we get kids into the pathway that closest ties into what their interests are. And then when it comes time for their job shadow, their internship, apprenticeship, that's where we can link with local partners to provide those specific experiences to get that for each individual student.
Yeah, we've had to cut 2 programs in our 6 years of being fully opened. And we use our Grow Cedar Valley, which is our local board, of business partners that kind of help us navigate those waters. We also use Hawkeye Community College, who is our concurrent partner, to tell us what, they're seeing as requested majors. And they're the ones that we offer concurrent credit through. So we highly rely on Hawkeye. Our counselors as well that are at the comprehensive high schools, they'll tell us what their most requested programs are. With that, cosmetology and auto, that's why we've brought them on this year, is because those were 2 of our most requested programs that we didn't offer. Welding is another one that we were just starting with those micro certifications because it was requested so much by our students to our counselors. Obviously, like Dan said, we can't bring everything in. And so there's a lot of work and study, data analysis to determine whether or not it's feasible to bring in a program or not. When it comes to having to cut a program, it takes about 3 years before we make that decision, 2 or 3 years. We're not going to cut a program. We're not going to cut a job because 1 year, there was a dip in enrollment for a program. But we do analyze that data every 2 to 3 years to determine what programs will stay and what programs will go. We also don't just look at student enrollment. We look at the long term, the projection by Grow Cedar Valley or by Hawkeye Community College to determine whether or not we'll keep a program.
Whitney, I've also spoken with another administrator with the Waterloo Career Center who said that sometimes you delay opening a program because you haven't found the right teacher yet. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So our over half of our staff are not teachers by trade. They come to us with by earning their CTE endorsement. And so we have had programs where we've had to delay it, where we just don't find the right fit, whether or not, they may have the experience in that trade or in that professional background, but they don't have the teaching experience that we're looking for, or they may have the teaching experience and they don't have the experience in that specific trade. So we have had to push off programs before. We're currently, we were fearful we were going to have to do that with one of our new programs, but we just had a new hire. But the hiring's been, it's been relatively easy. We've had a lot of applicants because I think people hear of the Waterloo Career Center. We push through for years and years. And so people know, oh, the Waterloo Career Center, I've heard these great things about it. I want to go work there. And so our hiring's gotten easier the last several years versus when we first opened, when it was slim pickings for sure.
Yeah, I think that's incredible. I think people hear about these programs and are concerned, about attracting educators to them. But to hear that you've been successful in that is really inspiring. Dan, can you talk about what that looks like in Nashville, finding and attracting qualified educators to teach these specialized programs?
Yeah, the vast majority of our teachers all are occupationally licensed, so they come to us from industry. We've really focused heavily. We added a position as a CTE instructional coach that his responsibility is he works with all of the teachers 0 to 3 years to best support, to best guide, provide them that teaching pedagogy as they work through their educator prep program that starts after they're hired. But we want to make sure that they all feel supported to where we can retain those teachers so we don't have to then recruit. And we've seen a lot of success so far just making sure the teachers have what they need. Because going from industry to education is a big jump for a lot of people. Some come in with the skills where they can build those relationships and can get that going, but others they need a lot of work to be able to take that 15, 20 years of experience they have doing it, and then how do they then teach that next generation. So we've focused heavily on just supporting our teachers and make sure that they have everything that they need to feel comfortable and allow them the space and opportunity to grow within the program to keep them there.
And I want to clarify, this is not replacing traditional teachers. You're not getting rid of your traditional teaching staff. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes, so they're not replacing existing staff. They are just the pool that we have to get for our CTE teachers. We have a few academically licensed areas, but the vast majority are all occupationally licensed teachers. So we're bringing somebody in that might have 10 or 15 years in construction. We're bringing them in to fill an opening that we have in one of our construction programs, as well as automotive and all those. So we're not getting rid of existing teachers. We're filling holes where teachers have left.
And with the current teacher shortage nationally, that's so important to be able to attract new people into the profession.
Yeah, it's huge, and like has been said several times, your reputation will bring people to the job, and so the value of what you do, the academy itself will bring a lot of people there because it's more of a team lift to do all of this stuff. They're not on an island, and so with that academy common planning that happens weekly, the teachers are part of a collective team that are working to educate the kids.
I think it's just to add on there. I think it's important to note because sometimes that can be the challenge that this work is siloed. There's traditional education, and then there's what you're doing here through your pathways programs, and it's in no way meant to replace traditional education or that foundational core experience. It's definitely meant to complement, and hopefully communities understand that, hopefully peers understanding that, because it really takes everyone to ensure that student is set up for success. I also want to add, just because we have great examples here from very metro areas, this work is being done too in our small rural schools across Iowa. So when we had those questions about how do you manage pathways and student interest, some of our rural schools are doing that as well, where they're not able to probably have a regional center with multiple pathways. They're still providing, strong connections with those local partners, maybe even in a project-based learning class where students are driving the projects. They're either bringing their ideas that they want to implement through the course, or sometimes the community is bringing their ideas and needs to the course. So there's different ways depending upon your need and your resources.
Yeah, Tanya, have you worked with any of those smaller rural school districts? Can you talk a little bit more about what those programs might look like in non-metro areas?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're really fortunate. We have over 120 schools that are STEM best models, which means they have some type of program where they're engaging with their local community. We have one MMCRU. Those letters, each letter stands for a different community. So up in Northwest Iowa, they have a pretty incredible industrial technology program where 80% of their student body participates in their electives through their CTE, which is pretty huge for such a small rural school district. And they have partners that provide them with welding projects, with automotive, with agricultural, with building. We also have a There are programs like IKM Manning, which has a business storefront for their school. So their class takes on community projects. Like they'll have a need like, oh, we need t-shirts for whatever is happening in their community because the football team is going to state or whatever. And then that class has to do the designing, the executing, the ordering. So that's another example. It's just really, they're really looking at the local level about maybe what that teacher is passionate about, what that business or community partner can provide in that partnership, and how that can translate to an authentic experience for their students.
Well, we have another audience question here. They say, I have companies that require citizenship, but students who have documentation issues. How do you provide those students opportunities in, apprenticeships and in internships in the industry?
I can speak on behalf of our internships. So our apprenticeships, if a student does an apprenticeship, they're an employee of that company for the Waterloo Career Center. So we would have to follow their rules and regulations. But our internship process in Waterloo is that they are an employee of ours, of the Waterloo School. So they're covered under our liability insurance, and we pay those students to go on to that work site. So they would be kind of like a job shadow, considered a job shadow with that specific business. But they're our Waterloo School's employee. So we'll follow any of our rules and regulations to become a Waterloo School employee before placing them at their internship experience.
So are you saying you've helped students kind of not find ways around their documentation, but just get their papers in order or whatever in order to work?
I have not specifically done that. And I guess, to become a Waterloo School employee, you do have to have, your social security card or passport to become one of our employees. But that's kind of how if that were to become an issue, that may be a workaround to have them become an employee of your specific district, and then you pay them. That's what we do. We do in Waterloo is they're our employee, we pay them, but they go work at that business, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, Dan, please. You guys have a little bit more experience here, maybe. What does it look like in Nashville?
It's real similar, again, with the documentation for employment, whether it's a outside employer or us, they do have to have documentation. But we're fortunate to have some great community organizations that can provide that support for the students and for their families to work through that process to work towards citizenship that we've really tried to do with our parent university, where a lot of our parents are going through education just as their students are. We really lean on them, and they've come through tremendously. On the dual enrollment side, the same thing goes with tuition. We have statewide dual enrollment grants that undocumented students are not able to take advantage of. But through community organizations, through our schools, we've been able to tap into some funds to make sure that the students have the opportunities that their classmates have.
Yeah, this person said the students don't have social security numbers, and that's part of the problem. So it sounds like there's still challenges there, but maybe connecting them with social services, helping them find a way forward is a start.
Yeah.
Well, we have about 10 more minutes. I want to invite anyone else in our audience who has questions, please pop them in the chat. I want to go back and talk a little bit more about how do you define what a pathway is, and how do students get credit towards graduation through these programs? Are they all like choice classes, or do they also get English, history, social studies, those sorts of credits through those programs?
In Waterloo, a majority of our Career Center classes are CTE credits that are needed for graduation. We do offer some core credits, math. We have some English credits that are embedded within to some of our business classes, but majority of ours are the elective high school credits that are needed.
Yeah, in Tennessee, students are required to have an elective focus. So for the graduation requirements, we still have all of the same 4 years of English, 4 years of math, science, social studies as well. It's just the structure that we tie all those together, really that replication of the middle school teaming model, to where we take that big school, the 2,000, 2,100 student school, and break it down into smaller schools of about 400 with the same core teachers that they'll have through there. Really helps them build those relationships and make it a better learning environment for the kids, where they can really get to know their staff and have those, hopefully those strong relationships that will carry them not only to the finish line of graduation, but beyond.
The only thing I would add to what my colleagues have said is 3 consecutive courses would consist of a pathway, and they would be on-ramps and off-ramps for each. But within those, we'd embed credit-bearing or college credit-bearing classes that kids could take to gain credit and money in their pocket as they exit our system as well.
And it sounds like these programs are hopefully encouraging students, if they feel a part of something bigger, have a plan for after graduation to do better, to strive more in their traditional learning as well. Awesome. All right. Well, I don't know that I have many more questions. I think this has been such an incredible conversation. I guess, are there any other misconceptions, really exciting aspects to college and career learning that we haven't touched on yet? Something that Adam, maybe you're excited Cedar Rapids is bringing to the community. We can start with you.
Yeah, I would just one, thank you for facilitating the conversation and inviting our district to the table. I think that a couple things. One, and we talked about this a little bit, is surfacing opportunities for all kids, and this is a program and a set of opportunities we want all kids to take advantage of. So making those opportunities transparent and guaranteed is a big focus for us. We started with our profile of a graduate. What is our promise to the community going to be? And then we want to report out on that as we engage in the programming to say, are our kids, are we moving the needle in terms of having our kids graduate with that profile? So we're excited to operationalize that, to get kids into these programs and see what we can do in terms of delivering on the promise of ensuring that every student is future ready and they truly do exit our system with a plan, passion, and pathway. I also would say our partners have come to the table in an unreal way. Kirkwood, the Regents universities, Iowa State, UNI, they've all been terrific. Co has been at the table. We're excited about the program. We're going to co-develop with them. So huge shout out to our higher education partners and all the businesses that have also come to the table. We're going to next week have our first business advisory council. They're going to provide a last round of feedback on our pathway development. And in that conversation, we want to say, hey, how are we going to do this together? And for the last 12 months, they've been right there with us. So we're excited to continue all those partnerships as well and develop them further.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of exciting news to come. I look forward to reporting on it.
Me too.
Dan, you talked about the improvement of graduation rates. How else in what other ways have you seen these programs impact students, families, the community?
I think, again, the biggest thing, the quantifiable areas, your attendance rate, your graduation rate, we talked about, discipline rates, behavior, significant drop. I know along with all of those was tied our gang rate, students' involvement in gangs, and just some of those stories that really stick to you, where a student might choose to not go skip school and go hang out with their friends because they have a experiential learning opportunity that they don't want to miss. And We had a student that chose the experiential learning opportunity versus hanging out with their friends, and those friends were involved in a carjacking and things like that. So just those unique experiences and the opportunities to hopefully get kids on a solid path versus the alternatives.
Yeah, Whitney, Tanya, would you like to add anything about the ways you've seen these programs improve communities and schools?
I don't have anything additional to add other, besides what Dan said. Just our attendance rates, engagement rates at the comprehensive high schools have increased substantially. Graduation rate alone, like I said, we're back at state average, which is very good for an urban district. I have nothing additional to add that Adam and Dan have not said.
Yeah, I think they have given great examples, and I think it's just important for the audience to know that these examples are like throughout Iowa. So the communities that are buying into shaping opportunities for their students and truly doing it with their students' intentions at heart and using their community resources are seeing gains not only at school, but in their community. And I mean, the hope I would think is that we see it all over Iowa. And we'll trickle it down to Tennessee too, just this whole corridor.
Yeah, it sounds like you're saying this is the time to invest in these sorts of programs. All right. Well, thank you so much to our panelists for this wonderful conversation. I hope everyone walks away with a little bit of a better understanding about what college and career learning is. Thank you to our audience for your insightful questions and to our Iowa Ideas sponsor, ITC Midwest. The conversation will continue at noon every day this week, diving into topics like how to build business and community partnerships, creating the space and infrastructure in school buildings for these programs, who teaches these programs, and how students and families can choose the best pathway for them. So thank you all for joining us today. I appreciate it.
Thank you.